the tireless rumbling of a nearby stream, the howls of the frosty wind, and the distant chuffing of a locomotive filled the cold air of a soon-to-be busy winter morning as a small locomotive carefully made its way over the old steel bridge, unaware of what lay ahead. That small locomotive is no other than my Orenstein Koppel field railway locomotive, the first one I ever created in Blender and the mascot of my channel. Or is it actually? As we talk more seriously about 3D printing, those tiny machines are the ideal starting point. Small and approachable, but yet with a certain complexity to test out printability, durability, and movability of all the parts. So for me it was about time to polish this model up once more and to bring it into a final state. Cueing the project Gemini, and once again manifesting my unhealthy tendency to name all my field railway locomotives. And what you see here might look at first sight exactly like my old model, but if you compare them side by side, yeah, there's hardly anything left. So let me reintroduce you to my 40 HP field railway locomotive. When I made my railway history episode about them, I introduced them as 30 HP machines, but they never actually were. The issue was when I first created that model that I did not have proper drawings. My old 3-axle variant was already back then fairly accurate for a 40 HP machine, and the 2-axle ones were just slightly smaller, so I called them 30 HP, even though there would be more like a one of 35 HP locomotive. But now I've slightly increased the size, all according to proper measurements of the 40 HP variant. And while as privately operated locomotives, it is quite difficult to find two that are exactly the same, is this indeed a standard type that Orenstein Koppel usually had in stock ready to be shipped out immediately. Because they were kind of a sweet spot, and as such they were suitable for all kinds of jobs, from agriculture work to construction sites and industrial uses. And indeed in the Field Railway Museum in Frankfurt am Main, you'll find a locomotive almost exactly like my model, which is their number 4. But of course, a locomotive on its own isn't really that useful, is it? And of course I have the iconic V-shaped tipper trucks. But the same story pretty much repeated itself also here. Even though I came back to them from time to time and changed a few things around, it is still quite obvious that these were some of my very first models. They weren't necessarily lacking in detail. Obviously it's a field railway tipper truck, there isn't a lot to them, but the geometry was very messy and many things were really not that accurate. So I pulled out a drawing of a Dean tipper truck, in other words a standardized one which was built like that from many different manufacturers, and once again reworked the whole model. I intentionally decided to go for the heavy variant of the small tippers, as the lightest variant without that middle beam here was really meant to be pushed by hand or drawn by a horse, but not necessarily to be worked by a locomotive. And obviously, from a modeling perspective, that middle beam I kinda needed anyway to attach the coupling loop somewhere and to give it all a bit more weight and stability. As even in 1:50 scale, these trucks are just about 4 centimeters long, so still tiny. And what about the track? Well, same story. For field railways it's kinda typical to have large spaces in between sleepers, but maybe let's stick to the bare minimum of 1 sleeper per meter, and not whatever that is. The reason why I did it back then is because the sleepers are obviously overscale, which you just can't really get around at a model scale, but with the remade track I still was able to shrink the sleepers a little bit down and to add 4 in and still catch the aesthetic of those far spaces in between. Nonetheless, I'm planning variants with different sleeper spacings, so while the standard track has a 1 meter sleeper distance, the heavy track has a 50 centimeter distance like it was used for the military field railways. And then there's also a third variant in between, and that middle variant will also be used for turnouts and crossings, as 4 sleepers are really not enough for a proper turnout. There were of course field railway turnouts with just 4 sleepers, but these tended to be very lightweight types which were really not that suitable for locomotive operation. But that also has the added bonus that it visually works with straight track of all 3 different sleeper spacings, as I've tried to keep the number of different track pieces as little as possible. Yeah, I didn't really succeed on that one, did I? But if you just look at the pieces that are necessary for the track geometry to work and get rid of all the duplicates that just have a different sleeper spacing, it's not actually that bad. And the reason for that is because after many years and losing my sanity multiple times, I finally found an almost perfect right angle triangle. I know that now sounds super nerdy, but a clean triangle is the base of any successful track geometry. And why is that triangle so beautiful? Because the length of all 3 sides is an absolute clean number. The height is 5 and the 2 long sides are 12 and 13 respectively. And even the sharp angle is workable, as it's almost 22.5 degrees, a quarter of 90 degrees. So basically what that means, I'm working with 12 centimeter units, but those units get once again divided into an 8 centimeter part and a 4 centimeter part. And the 8 centimeter segment can be exchanged with any turnout or standard crossing, and as my turnouts and crossings are all symmetrical, they can be used in any orientation. The only thing you have to do to use them diagonally is to exchange the following 4 centimeter track piece with a 5 centimeter track piece. But even that isn't really a specialized track piece, as 5 cm is also the parallel track spacing. And what's even more, when I have a turnout, I don't have an S-curve because there's always at least 5 cm of straight track in between. Which also enables me to create a double crossover, without needing any specialized pieces with the exception of the 45-degree crossing. Well, 45.24 to be precise. And also when we just have a straight line, as 4 cm of the short track segment is a perfect half of 8 cm, I can just get rid of the short ones and just use 8 cm as my standard track piece. And what radius do these turnouts actually have? 20 cm, which equals 10 meters. And yes, I know what you're thinking, 20 cm radius, isn't that a bit insane? Don't forget, this is a field railway. And even though this geometry will also be the base of any other track I will create later on, I will not force my standard gauge locomotives through such a tiny radius. You know, you can always just upscale it by 2 or 1.5 or 3, change the angle from 22.5 to 11.25, and that will also mean that all the track of the different gauges will work together for 3-rail tracks, for multi-gauge crossings and all those shenanigans that are fairly rare in 1-to-1 scale, especially nowadays, but are very fun on a model railway. And now to the most important question of them all. When will I actually start to 3D print those models, and when will you be able to do the same? Well, these are actually 2 questions. Oh well, sometime in 2026. I can't give you really an exact date, as, first of all, these models are still not completely done. Most importantly, the locomotive still lacks a proper interior, and there are some other small bits here and there that I still need to finish up. And of course, just because it works on the screen does not mean it will also work as a physical model. So there will be quite some trial and error, some testing and tweaking before these models are truly ready. And once that happens, I will make them available. So if you want to know about that as soon as it happens, then keep an eye on this channel, as obviously I will do a video about that. And with that, I can't really put in words how excited I am for the coming year. 3D printing has been my goal for all those years, and finally I'm ready to take my first step into it. But also looking back to 2025, there were some big and amazing projects this year. And we also hit the milestone of 10,000 followers. Which is a big number, much too big to really be able to comprehend what that actually means. So thank you so much for your support, and it's just so wonderful to see for me as an artist that what I'm so passionate about also resonates with you. So let's hope next year will be even better. Thank you so much for your ever-increasing support. So there's not much left for me to say other than I hope you have a wonderful time in between the years, which is actually a horrible expression. Oh well, and that I will see you again, well, actually maybe even this year still, at the very latest in the next one. So, happy holidays, a wonderful new year, and to many more historic railway endeavors. And an especially big thank you for making all that possible and for helping me to keep this channel sponsorship free goes to our channel members, which include among many others Contrean, Denman, Dave Heise, Getter, Kay Frankly, Lucas Ilskens, Macken1220, Manus Moba, Martin Zoten Vigican, Michael Beck, SGT Scuba, Søren Dominic Cook, Steamy Player, The Soulless Redbeard, The Steff1309, and Void Elder.